In Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, on the southern flank of Kilauea, there is a road with the most honest performance record in the history of American infrastructure. The coastal section of Chain of Craters Road, the stretch that once connected the park to the village of Kalapana, opened to traffic in 1965, and when the National Park Service reviewed its history in 2018, it published a statistic that reads like a joke and is simply an audit. In the 53 years the road had existed, it had been blocked by lava for 41 of them. 41 out of 53. A batting average of failure so consistent it crosses over into a kind of integrity. This is a road that has been buried, reburied, realigned, rebuilt, and buried again, entombed in places under lava tens of feet deep, 30 feet and more where the flows stacked upon themselves. Its most famous landmark for years, a yellow road closed sign, standing waist-deep in hardened black pahoehoe, the lava having flowed around the sign and politely left the message legible, the volcano's idea of filing the paperwork. And the punchline, if you can call it that, is that the road has never actually been defeated, because Hawaii keeps rebuilding it, and Kilauea keeps accepting the offering, and this cycle, a highway department locked in a permanent losing negotiation with the most active volcano on Earth, is the story we are telling today. To understand it, you have to understand what this ground is, because Chain of Craters Road was never built across a landscape. It was built across a process. Kilauea is not a mountain that occasionally erupts. It is a construction site that never closes, adding land, deleting land, running lava to the sea for decades at a stretch. And its south flank, where the road descends 3,700 feet from the summit region to the coast, is the volcano's primary work area. The Hawaiians who lived here for centuries understood the terms perfectly. The coastal lowlands held villages, Kamoamoa, Laeapuki, Kealakomo, fishing settlements with temples and petroglyph fields, including Wahaula Heiau, built in the 13th century by the priest Pa'au and remembered as the first Luakini, the first temple of human sacrifice in the islands, in use until the old religion ended in 1819. Those communities lived on Pele's floor and knew whose floor it was. The road, when it came, would be taught the same lesson at contractors' rates. The original Chain of Craters Road was dedicated on April 15, 1928, a modest scenic drive costing $148,000, linking the string of pit craters along Kilauea's East Rift and dead-ending at the rim of Makaupuhi Crater. For 37 years it behaved like a normal road, and then in 1965 the Park Service extended it down the Great Fault Scarps to the coast and east to Kalapana, completing a spectacular loop, and in doing so laid 11 miles of federal pavement directly across the East Rift Zone, which is the volcanic equivalent of stringing a clothesline across a runway. The volcano's response took 4 years to schedule. Before dawn on May 24, 1969, a fissure split the ground at Aloi Crater and unzipped westward directly across Chain of Craters Road, fountaining lava in a curtain along its length, and by breakfast the road was cut, the opening act of the Mauna Ulu eruption, which would continue for 5 years, build an entirely new lava shield squarely on top of the road's alignment, and bury 12 miles of pavement so thoroughly that when the Park Service returned after the eruption ended in 1974, it did not excavate the road. It surrendered the corridor and drew a new one, realigning the route southward around the young shield, and the rebuilt Chain of Craters Road reopened in June 1979. 10 years of closure, one road relocated, one volcano satisfied, for 7 years. Because in 1983, a few miles further east along the same rift, a vent opened that would come to be called Pu'u'o'o, and it did not erupt and stop. It erupted and stayed, for 35 years, the longest rift eruption in centuries, sending lava toward the coast in tube-fed flows year after year, and in 1986, those flows found the coastal highway and began the most one-sided rematch in road-keeping history. The lava cut the road, then buried it, then buried the burial. Between 1986 and the 1990s, roughly 9 to 10 miles of the Kalapana link vanished under successive flows. The losses were not only asphalt. In June 1989, a lava flow reached the Wahaula Visitor Center and burned it to its slab, The ancient heiau beside it, spared twice as flows split around its walls, was finally entombed entirely in August 1997. 7 centuries of history closed out in an afternoon. In November 1992, the flows took the Kamoamoa village site, its campground, and its black sand beach. And in 1990 came the catastrophe that gave this eruption its human face. The flows turned into Kalapana itself, outside the park, and over months, in slow motion, at walking pace, methodically buried the village, more than 100 homes, the famous black sand crescent at Kaimu, the gardens, the graves, everything except what could be carried, which in one immortal case included an entire building, the Star of the Sea painted church, jacked onto a truck and driven up the highway ahead of the advancing flow, a church fleeing a volcano and winning, the one race anyone won that year. Think about the nature of this destruction for a moment, because it is unlike anything else in this series. No one died at Kalapana. Lava of this kind does not ambush. It announces, weeks ahead, and then comes on at the speed of a committee, and the people of Kalapana stood at barricades and watched their houses ignite one by one, a disaster with perfect visibility and zero mercy, grief in real time. When it was over, the road to Kalapana no longer existed in any sense, buried across miles to depths that turned utility poles into stubble, and Chain of Craters Road became what it remains, a 19-mile dead end, descending magnificently from the craters to the sea arch at Hole, and stopping, mid-coastline, at a wall of black rock with a sign, the pavement diving under the flow like a whale sounding. And here the story acquires its recursive, almost comic final act, because twice in the last decade, Hawaii has needed the dead road back, and both times the volcano has repossessed it on schedule. In 2014, when a Pu'u'o'o flow crept toward the town of Pahoa and threatened to sever Highway 130, the only road serving Lower Puna's thousands of residents, the State and Park Service spent $5.1 million bulldozing an emergency gravel route along the buried coastal alignment, removing, in the process, the beloved lava-locked road closed sign, sacrificing the monument to reopen the corridor. The Pahoa flow stalled, the emergency passed, and in 2016 and 2017, new flows from the same vent poured across the freshly graded emergency route and buried it again. $5 million returned to inventory. Then came 2018, Kilauea's furious finale, when the volcano abandoned Pu'u'o'o, dropped its summit by 1,000 feet, and erupted through the Leilani Estates subdivision in Lower Puna, destroying more than 700 homes, filling Kapoho Bay, and once again menacing Highway 130. And once again, in May and June of 2018, the bulldozers went back to Chain of Craters Road, scraping a 0.7-mile-wide band of solidified 2016 lava off the 2014 emergency route that had been built over the 1986 through 1990s flows that had buried the 1979 realignment of the road, first buried in 1969. Read that sentence again. That is not a history. That is a stratigraphy. Layers of road and lava alternating like sediment, a fossil record of an argument the road has now been losing, in 5 separate geological installments, for over half a century. What stays with me about Chain of Craters Road is that it may be the only piece of infrastructure in America whose repeated destruction is, in the deepest sense, appropriate, and everyone involved seems to know it. In Hawaiian tradition, this land belongs to Pele in a proprietary, present-tense way, and the flows that take roads and homes are understood by many Hawaiians not as disaster but as the landlady renovating. When Kalapana burned, elders spoke of Pele reclaiming her own, and the Park Service itself now writes about the buried miles with something close to that grace, noting each loss and each 100 acres of brand new land the flows have added to the island. Because that is the other side of the ledger no other road in this series can claim. The same force that erases this highway is actively building the ground the next version will be paved on. The volcano is not the road's enemy. The volcano is the road's supplier, working both ends of the contract. So go and drive what exists, because the surviving 19 miles are among the most extraordinary in the national park system. Descend from the summit craters past Mauna Ulu, the hill that ate the first alignment, now a quiet gray shield you can hike beside. down the great Pali switchbacks with the enormous black coastal flats spreading below, lava fields of every vintage lapped over one another like spilled paint, out to the sea cliffs where the Hole Sea Arch stands in the spray, and on to the end of the road, where the barricades wait and the pavement runs under the rock. Get out and walk to the edge of the flow. Put your hand on it. Somewhere beneath you, under 30 feet of stone, is a striped highway, with its signs and its culverts, and beneath sections of that an older highway, and around it the buried villages, the temple of Pa'ao, the black sand of Kaimu, 7 centuries of human tenancy filed away in basalt. The road crews will be back. They always come back. The state keeps the agreement on file, and the bulldozers fueled. And the volcano, 20 miles up the rift, holds the only permanent easement on this coast, patient in the way that only a landowner can be, letting the tenants pave what they like, whenever they like, on the clear and ancient understanding of who, at the hour of her choosing, gets the ground back.